What if you can gather over 60 foreigners currently living in Germany in one room and ask them one question? What do you wish you knew before you moved here? Well, to help you prepare for your upcoming move to Germany, that's exactly what we did. Okay, we didn't put them all in a room. We sent this question to our newsletter readers, and in this video, we're analyzing their answers. We got replies from 64 different internationals living in Germany from 21 different countries. Nationalities. Now, of course, every answer was very individual. However, when we put all the answers together and analyze them, we see clear patterns. We actually discovered 3 challenges that came up over and over and over again, as well as 2 very interesting topics that foreigners were prepared for and actually experienced the complete opposite. We will call them the Mythbusters. So get ready to discover what are these 3 challenges and these 2 Mythbusters. Hey, my name is Jen and I'm from Guatemala.
And mine is Yvonne and I'm German.
And together we're from simplegermany.com, where we create English content to empower internationals to move to and settle into life in Germany more smoothly.
By the way, if you would like to prepare best for your move to Germany, we invite you to sign up to our free Prep Your Move email series to Germany so you don't miss any critical step. You can find the sign up link in the description below. Now let's get right to our list of the things internationals wish they knew before moving to Germany. And the number 1 thing that came up over and over again is the importance of the German language. Many respondents emphasized and expressed that they underestimated the importance of learning German beforehand and how much they would need it in their day-to-day life. And what stood out here is not just that they needed to be fluent to find a job or anything like that. Some mentioned that, depending on the industry they were in, but more so the repetitive key here that was being mentioned over and over was the necessity of German for conversational language in their daily interactions, for appointments, and also to feel more integrated. In hindsight, actually what people expressed was a little bit of regret, and if they had known this beforehand, they would have started to learn German earlier. Also, they would have learned it differently. They would have focused on colloquial German and approached the whole topic earlier and with more focus. So, Jen, I know this is one of your favorite topics when we talk about moving and settling in Germany. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, I fully agree, especially the colloquial German part of it, because it's one thing to learn on textbook how Germans speak. It's another one when you actually land here and hear how people speak. It's completely different. I think this is true for any language that you're learning, to be honest. However, I think it's a critical part to feel integrated and part of the culture to learn some German. And the sooner you can learn this, the better. I actually took some time to fully focus on my German learning, and I still call it work in progress. And my actually thinking of this is like, I know German the Pareto way. So 20% of the German language helps me achieve 80% of what I want to communicate, and that has worked wonders. Another also interesting thing is that when you make an effort to speak German to Germans, even though it's not perfect, they actually, in my opinion, and experience open up a little bit more than if you directly talk to them in English. So I think for just better interactions, learning some German definitely is crucial.
And what are your tips? Especially we are having here the insight that is not, like you said, the classroom textbook German, but more of the, let's call it street German.
Yeah, the street. So I would say what has helped me the most actually is 2 things. Number 1 is listening to German music, and more specifically, not only listening to it, but actually reading the lyrics. Nowadays with AI, you can use something like ChatGPT or something to ask it, what does it actually mean? Because in lyrics, usually what people say is not actually what they mean, because there's a lot of colloquialism and stuff. So that has definitely helped me. For that, for example, I don't know, it depends on what kind of music you're into, right? Like rock, Rammstein is super hardcore lyrics, I would say you wouldn't find the colloquialism. However, Schlager music, I think it's the best one for colloquialism, because Schlager music is like the German people's music.
Country folk
music. Yeah. And there you hear a lot of colloquialism. And there, I would say that's that. Another one is to actually watch movies or TV shows that are in German, because there, for sure, you will hear a lot of colloquialism. One of my favorite German movies is called Honig im Kopf, like honey in the head. It's a very sweet movie, and also there you get a lot of everyday German, so to speak. So I think those are the 2 best ways. I have a hair in my eye. Okay, yeah.
So number 2 is what I would like to call a classic phenomenon of feeling is knowing. And this is the slow and complex bureaucracy and administrative processes in Germany. Now, I would say when you prepare for your move, you definitely get to hear about German bureaucracy, if not already from the news or whatsoever. However, knowing of it is very different than going through it. So a lot of our newsletter readers really did get still surprised by how slow, complex it is, and specifically, let's say, the difficulty or slowness of getting appointments and filing paperwork.
Also, I would say one big shock, if I remember correctly, is the fact that German bureaucracy still relies a lot on actually snail mail. So you do receive actually quite some postal mail in your inbox, not your Gmail or anything, but your inbox. Because, some things require you to receive a letter, to take action, and then send a letter, and then receive a letter, to then send a letter, to then finally complete a process.
Yeah. So this is often referred to, I would have expected more from a so-called first world country. But, yes, digitalization is moving forward. A lot of things are getting digitalized, but by far not everything.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point.
And another aspect of this whole bureaucracy topic is that a lot of people were uncertain, despite preparation, on which order to follow and which steps to take exactly to get the best and fastest result. So they actually wished for a calm and step-by-step guide. Those were actually the words that we received. And exactly for this purpose, what I mentioned earlier, Prep Your Move email series guides you exactly step-by-step through that process. So if you would like that guidance as well, feel free to sign up. It's for free.
And check it out, yeah. So I would say this is a kind of thing that everything that you will experience in Germany will highly depend on where you're coming from and what you're used to. For example, in my home country of Guatemala, bureaucracy also is a thing, and it's also very slow, and it takes a lot of effort. Difference being that there you can hire kind of like liaison, how do you call this in English?
Liaison?
Like a person that you pay for and then they do the stuff for you without actually having a power of attorney. I think it's just how things work. So it seems that things are quicker and you can do them faster. However, it's because you're not doing them yourself. You don't really experience the full blown thing of it. Once I did a process myself and I spent, I kid you not, a whole 8 hours in a building running back and forth from one office to the next, to the next, to the next, because no one really knew what was happening. Versus in my experience in Germany, at least, in general, maybe you go twice, to 2 offices because one sends you to the next one. But there's a process, and usually if you follow this process, although it takes time, you're able to go through it, right? Like you have a list of things that you need to gather, documents or whatnot for a specific process, and then you're able to present them, and then things move. Maybe slowly, but they move. One massive tip here is to actually, when you are filing for, let's say, a residence permit and you have a list of documents that you need to provide, what has worked a lot for myself and other internationals is to really prepare it as if you're preparing very special kit for someone, where you name the documents properly, you put them in the right order, maybe even number 1, 2, 3, and make it as easy as possible so whoever's at their computer opening that file can understand at a glance what document is what. Because those will put yourself in that situation of you're just getting a zip file or all the documents and you don't know what is what. I mean, I think it's also their job, but if you make it easier, then things might speed up a little bit more.
I love your advocacy.
Rant over.
And number 3 that was mentioned over and over again by all of the participants who answered this question was the slow and difficult process of making friends and integration in general. And this is, actually a topic that does get mentioned over and over. Also, I know that you struggled with that a little bit in the beginning. And what was meant here in particular was the difficulty of breaking through into German social circles. Because it's, let's say, probably the first thing and easier to make other international friends. But breaking through to those Germans, that is actually what most people struggle with. And the underlying sentiment was that Germans can be reserved and building lasting and deep friendships takes a lot of time and effort. Can only agree to that. And another thing they said is that people keep to themselves. There is less small talk. There's silence in public places. That one was a very interesting one. And that came particularly often from, let's say, louder cultures. Especially I would say in the evenings and nights. It's quite quiet outside, which I would say yes, definitely. Please, let it stay that way.
This reminds me actually of a reel that I saw once of 10 p.m. in Zurich, I think, or something, because it's also a German kind of influence culture. And it was quiet, right? And then 10 p.m. in Spain, and there were people with drums singing and dancing outside. And that image just came to my mind. And I think also coming from a louder country, as you called us, I would agree. For example, I saw another reel on social media. I'm not on social media much, clearly. And it was how in Guatemala, there was like a delay of an airplane, and by like, I don't know, like an hour or so. And what they did is that they put music at the airport, and people were dancing, right? Because the music was loud enough, or people were having like a whole party as they were waiting for it.
Yeah, no, Germans would be upset and be like, wann geht's denn endlich los? Like, when does the plane leave? What's the reason? Anyways, so let's go back to the friendship.
Yes. So I have a lot to say about this. Actually, in preparation for a Prep Your Move.
Keep it nice,
Okay.
kiss.
But I wanted to say, like, in preparation for the prep, as I was writing the emails for the Prep Your Move series, I wrote about this topic, and I had to stop myself because I'm like, okay, maybe this is too much. So what I can say is that all of what you said is very true. And what a German actually told me once...
It's not what I said, it's what our newsletter reader said.
True, what you said as a voice of the newsletter is true. And I remember I once joined a softball team way back in the day when I first started my life in Germany. And a German once told me, an older German guy, Jen, we Germans, we are like coconuts. We are very, this is my German accent, by the way, we're very hard on the outside, but once you crack us, we're like sweet, and like it's amazing. And pretty much he was saying we're very hard to crack, but once you have us, kind of, we're there for life. And I can only attest to that. It takes a very long time to build a friendship in general as an adult. In Germany, it takes a lot of effort. And 2 tips I would give here. Number 1 is that Germans really appreciate reliability and trust. So when you're gonna say you're gonna be somewhere or do something, do it. Only say yes if you actually mean it. And in Germany, it's okay to say no. Like, no, I don't have time, or no, I don't want to. Versus in my culture, for example, we say yes to everything and do 2% of the things that we say yes to. In Germany, no, you should do 98% of the things, and only in emergencies cancel the things that you can't do. That's number 1. Number 2 is that you have to be consistent, and you actually maybe need to take the first step to ask a German that you like, not in a I want to date you kind of way, but in a friendship kind of way, like, hey, do you want to go grab a coffee together or join an activity together? And the best way, I believe, is to join an activity or a thing that you can interact with Germans over and over and over and over again. So this usually comes in some sort of Vereins, which is like, it could be a sports club or music or a choir or, like a community thing that you can just...
A hobby-based thing.
Stuff, that you have a common interest with the people. And then, like I said, you consistently see them again. And be patient. It takes time. I can say in 13 years of living in Germany, I have 4 I can't count, 4 really good German friends. And by the way, the definition in Germany for a friend is someone you can call at 3 a.m. So I would say it takes time, but it's possible. And once you do crack them, I believe they're friends for life.
And they show up.
Yes, rant over again.
All right, so next to sharing some of these challenges, of course there were others, but they were more individual and didn't come up like as a whole and as a pattern throughout the 64 different answers. And however, what did come through also were 2 things that the big majority of internationals were prepared for, that they expected from Germany, but then they experienced the opposite. And they actually coined it a little bit as, I also would like to bust some myth here. So let's bust some myth for the 2 most popular mentioned topics.
Okay, tell me.
So the majority of people actually replied with how surprised they were how friendly and helpful Germans were compared to the opposite that they expected because of social media, how rude and cold and unapproachable Germans were. So that personally made my German heart, of course, shine and feel super warm. It's like, yay, thank you, amazing.
Yes, so here I would say I see that. And what usually happens, and it's just, I think, human behavior and brain, is that, because that happened to me as well, that you might have really good exchanges and interactions with people, and then you have one sour one that, the German yells
at you.
or tells you a thing too directly, and then that's what you remember, like, oh my God, Germans are so unfriendly. However, I would say in my experience as well, please let me rant for a little bit.
I was just going to add something.
Please go ahead.
And also here specifically said people had that image of Germans from social media. And then again, if you think how social media works, it's by doing something sensational that is outrageous, that gets attention, right? Because otherwise things don't go viral. And of course, portraying Germans as being rude and yelling and gets more attention because, negativity bias that we have than saying like, oh, they're all smiley and helpful, which is also not the case. They're not all smiley, but they're helpful and friendly, especially if you ask for help.
Yes, I would say, of course, there's some truth to what social media says. Germans can be very direct. They can seem, or one could hear that they're raising their voice, but for them it's not yelling yet, just because of the tone and how they say things. However, I would also say Germans can be very sweet, very funny, very unique sense of humor once you understand the language, which goes to point number 1. And yeah, just generally nice.
And very often what we also experience is someone looks serious on the street and maybe miserable from the outside. But if you approach them with German ideally, Guten Morgen or
Hallo.
Können Sie mir helfen, bitte?
Can you help me, please?
You get a smile. It's like, ja, guten Morgen. Ja, bitte.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Again, not always, but very often. And again, this was kind of like the biggest myth our readers wanted to bust, which, wow, amazing. I mean, this is, I would say, the number one thing you can expect or can receive is you expect rudeness and coldness and you get friendliness. Wow.
Okay, let's go to the second myth.
A second myth, a bit of the opposite. People expected, based again on cultural online training, social media, and what's so not, that Germans always follow the rules. Wow. And then they expect the opposite and say, like, I don't know how many emails I read, Germans don't follow the rules. And here I again had to laugh, and I would like to try to explain this a little bit. So generally as a country, yes, we follow the rules because otherwise the processes that we mentioned earlier and other things wouldn't work the way they work. However, there are massive exceptions and not just one or two. It also depends a little bit on regionality where you live. And then it depends on what do you, for yourself, phrase as rules. Because there's, I would say, rules that actually do get followed. For example, let's say cars stopping at a red light. 99.9% do that.
Yeah.
I have no idea if in other countries they don't. I'm just
they
grabbing
don't,
things
remember,
here from.
We were in a, where was it? We were in a country and then a red light.
We're not comparing.
Just go.
Yeah, we're not comparing here. However, then let's say other things like, we have like these silent times, silent hours after 10 p.m. And if you, depending on where you live, maybe some people don't always respect it. Or it's just this one neighbor that you have and then you think all Germans don't follow the rules. Meaning you will encounter people who don't follow the rules. I know your pet peeve is the parking.
I have an example, yeah. And you usually see these big parking signs that says no parking allowed. And then you see like a whole line of cars parked there. And you're like, hey, but it says no parking. And where's the Ordnungsamt, which is like the order police, by the way, giving here the fines to the people?
They do go around.
Yeah, but not enough, clearly.
Anyway, so apparently we don't follow the rules as much as portrayed on social media. But to emphasize, don't go about now saying like, I don't care about the rules and do all things nonchalant.
I have one thing to add to this. And like you mentioned before, it highly depends on where you live. As an example, there is a rule in Germany that for a pedestrian crossing, there is a red light and you shouldn't cross when the red light is red. However, if you're in Berlin, this rule gets ignored 100%. The other day, the supermarket clerk was telling us a story how she was waiting for the red light, and then
mind you, not at a street crossing, but as a tram crossing, like when the trains cross.
Ah, right, yeah,
and they have you flashing lights, and also with sound, like ding, 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 for you to really not step over the tracks.
Yeah, and the person crossed during this moment. However, this person failed to see that on the other side or next to them, I don't know where the person was a police officer with 10 children, and the police officer, which is really cute, also here in Germany, they were teaching the rules and regulations of like walking on the street to kids. And then the police officer saw this person doing this and received like a massive, really scolding. Because like you're not supposed to do that, especially in front of children, what kind of example? And the rant goes on, really. And so depends on where you live. If you cross the light like this in front of kids and people see you, you will get yelled at, for example.
Anyways, we're getting out of
another rant.
Out of topic here a little bit. But again, there is a grain of salt to rule following in Germany. Just observe yourself and choose the path that most suits you.
No, follow the rules. What are you saying? Follow the rules so you don't get in trouble. That's my mantra.
Well, ultimately, I believe, generally, not just Germany, but in general, in the beautiful world that we live in, culture is fascinating and fluid. It's constantly changing. And oftentimes, I would say, when we portray stereotypes, they are maybe a depiction of some years ago.
Or there's some truth to it, but it's just not the general thing, right?
Right. But the beautiful part is that we go to experience another culture for hopefully also a sense of adventure.
Yes, and if you're actively planning your move to Germany, the video here on the left is a must-watch. We should do this together. On the left is a must-watch where we depict a 90-day timeline for you to plan your move to Germany more smoothly. Until next time, cheers!